Right, so after all of the Lineker-related fuss that we've seen over the last several days, we do need to remember what he was kicking off about to start with. That really is the most important thing here. The Stop the Boats Bill, as the government incessantly call it as many times as they possibly can, to really ram home the indoctrination, really screw it into our psyches. The Illegal Migration Bill, as it is actually called. Emphasis ought to be on the illegal bit, though, not because people seeking asylum are illegal, they are absolutely not, but because this central tenet of the Tories' culture war on refugees, stoking racism to try and win votes, unable to stand on their 13-year record of austerity, incompetence and failure as they are, is illegal from the point of view of the European Convention on Human Rights, an international law despite the name, and the United Nations Refugee Convention. It will be ruled illegal on the world stage should it pass, of that I am certain. It should be called the Illegal Tory Bill or Illegal Racist Tory Bill. I'm sure you can come up with your own colourful variation of that, though. Anyway, the filthy thing came back to Parliament for its second reading yesterday amid much protesting last night in Parliament Square. A large Stop the Bill demo. Much better choice of words, I thought. So much so it could be heard in the Commons chamber during the debate. The square was packed. The crowds assembled to protest this were astonishing. It's not exactly a strange thing to see protests there on Parliament Square, but this really was something else. Loads of images across social media of those events, and naturally, the absolute boy himself, Jeremy Corbyn, addressed said crowds, was part of the pushback against this regressive illegal action. But back in the chamber, Suella Braverman, she who still dreams of those deportations, she who fears 100 million refugees coming this way, equating refugee with displaced people to ramp up her fear-mongering and racist rhetoric amongst the British public when 3/4 of displaced people due to war, famine, climate-related issues, whatever, never actually leave their own country. Having been royally rinsed by both social media and the mainstream media for her extremist views here, you would think she would have kept her head down a little bit. But no, this reprehensible creature decided her next line of attack to encourage more discontent towards migrants, refugees and asylum seekers amongst the general populace of this country was to say they're now bringing drugs into the country. She said, "When I've spoken to police chiefs around this country, what they tell me is that criminality, in particular drug supply and usage, is now connected to people who came here on small boats illegally in the first place." Well, my immediate thought was, so is that what's happened to all of those kids you lost from detention centres that you've never found then? Would anyone be surprised if the lack of support for such people was what would have driven them to criminality? Actually, what would surprise me more is if there was an ounce of truth in anything she just said, because there wasn't. We know she hates migrants. We can only assume she'd block her own parents from Kenya and Mauritius, respectively, from ever coming here either. You know what the real kicker is, though? Braverman has had the nerve to claim she has been the victim here, that she has been the subject of grotesque slurs for saying simple truths about the impact of unlimited and illegal immigration. Here's the real truth, Suella. Brexit, lacking any form of returns policy in Boris Johnson's oven-ready sham of a deal, has meant anyone coming here to claim asylum cannot be moved to another returns policy country in order to share the load of rehoming asylum seekers. Therefore, all the ones coming here know if their application is successful under international law, we have to house them. 45,000 of them came last year. That's expected to rise to some 70,000 this year, and still that elephant in the Brexit deal room hasn't been addressed, and instead rabid Brexiteer types like Braverman, rather than admit to a failure in government, would rather scapegoat people fleeing war zones and seek to break international law, ushering in an exit from those same human rights conventions this country played a leading part in writing, and becoming ever more a pariah state, a failed state off the coast of Europe. Braverman bleated that it is irresponsible to claim the government policies are bigoted. It isn't. They are. She claims the policies are backed by the majority of the British people. Who said? Who have you asked? You didn't ask me. None of the people shouting at you from Parliament Square agreed with you, that's for sure. All of this language, all of this bigotry, all of this hate being spouted by the Home Secretary. This literally is the language of 1930s Germany. Lineker was absolutely right, as we all know by now, particularly after the BBC reinstated him, the Tories having a collective aneurysm about that, undermining their hate speech as that is done. Braverman again had to bring up her dream. All those asylum seekers being packed off to Rwanda, all 500 or so of them that Rwanda has agreed to take, and all for a snip at £140 million so far. So that's £280,000 per refugee charged to us by the public purse. Oh, what a bargain. Oh, before I forget to mention, though, not one has so far been sent, of course, because human rights laws have ensured those flights have been blocked each and every time. Rwanda also refused to take any Afghans, Syrians, or Yemenis, and we have to take some of their refugees in here as well in return. Quite the dream you've got there, Suella, you absolute weapon. 45,000 came here last year on small boats, I'll reiterate. Rwanda is a nonsense and now isn't even a safe country, as has repeatedly been told to us, as Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo are verging on war with each other now. So that safe country status Braverman and the Tories are banged on about is giving off strong my arse it's safe vibes. Of course, Braverman and co now talk about other countries they'll do deals with to deport refugees to. Why don't you just sort out a returns policy with the EU, you cretinous creature? You don't need to be in the EU to have a returns policy with them, to share the asylum load. Who would you rather send them God knows where and pay millions to see it done? Why would you do that? Just how functionally evil are you? What is wrong with you? What countries will these be then, Damo? You might well be asked. Well, we don't know, because none have been mentioned. It's just Rwanda every time. It's just Braverman grasping at straws again. This bill passing would still mean, as is the case now, that only unsuccessful asylum claimants could be deported. The illegality comes in by banning anyone arriving by small boat from being able to make such a claim to begin with. Straight violation of human rights, for the right to seek asylum is enshrined in the ECHR. Braverman hopes that won't be the case. It will, but she hopes it won't, so she can say nobody has a valid asylum claim. All can be deported. Or can they? Her problem here is that because none have or would have a valid claim, none would have an invalid claim either. So could any be deported anyway, at all? Would they all end up being held in detention indefinitely instead because of legal wrangles? Stuck in limbo as so many already are due to the horrendous backlog we already have now. Higher bills charged to us, of course, for them being put up in hotels. More people potentially being targeted by fascists as a result. More finger-pointing by the likes of Nigel Farage. And for a government that says it is set on clearing the backlog of applications they have, losing kids because they've lost control of the process, detention centres resembling concentration camps as seen at Manston, their bill would make things even worse than they are already. Why not focus resources into sorting out the backlog of claims you have now, wasting cash on the people housed there whose asylum applications fail and should be sent back home anyway, than focusing on wasting money sending them somewhere else when you're only going to be stopped from doing so because it will be ruled illegal? Equally, those stuck in hotels who get granted asylum can then leave, begin work, start contributing themselves to society, strengthening our economy and our services, filling vacancies where appropriate even. Why is that not so important to you? I thought you Conservatives were all about that. Or does bigotry and racism supersede it all now? You need a culture war to win the next election. Well, needless to say, the bill ended up passing its second reading. Not that there weren't significant examples of standing against it. Caroline Lucas, the Green Party MP, notably ripped the bill up in front of Braverman, absolutely furious over it. But of course, not a single Tory voted against it, though several did abstain. Passing second reading means it goes to the committee stage next to be scrutinised line by line, gone through with a fine-tooth comb, before it comes back for a third reading. Amendments may be laid down to it, then it's off to the Lords, where the Tories look like they may have a fight on their hands over it. The fact a blatantly illegal bill is still progressing through Parliament should be a national embarrassment. It's discriminatory because it targets people coming via routes to claim asylum they have no other choice but to take, because there is no legal route into the UK to claim asylum. And under our asylum rules, you must be on British soil in order to claim asylum. It is criminal. The people pushing it like Braverman are the ones who should be criminalised for doing so, though, not those fleeing war or whatever else they may have a valid asylum case for. The Tories don't just deserve to lose for trying to use vulnerable people as an electioneering tactic come the general election. They deserve to be absolutely annihilated at the polls for it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on that Linktree link in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.